with Power Solar, and this is Corey C. He also works with Power. He's got a little bit of a story for us. He actually started out, as a homeowner that purchased solar, and then he converted over to wanting to sell solar. So if you want, just kind of share your story about that. Introduce yourself and.
Yeah, awesome. So what's going on, guys? Like you said, my name's Corey. I am here in Central Florida, so I live in St. Pete. Um, Joined Power back in August or September-ish. But I'm actually a customer of Power first. So, um, my girl and I, we bought a house, and when we got our house, we knew we were going to have some roof work done, and we have a metal roof. So of course my girl was like, no, listen, as much as I wanted to go solar, she wasn't having it. She's like, I just spent all this money on the roof. Nobody's touching my roof. Nobody's putting holes in my roof. And so, yeah, long story short, we found out that we could get solar installed without putting a bunch of holes in the roof. I kind of convinced her to at least take a look at it. The numbers made sense. And now we get all of our electricity from the sun. So, yeah. And, the beautiful thing about it was we had such an amazing experience working with Power that, the guy who sold us, he's like, hey, if you ever want to sell, you're into it, you understand what it is, you seem to have the technical knowledge. If you ever want to sell, just let me know. And at the time, just timing, I had some personal stuff going on, and timing piece just didn't work out. But a couple months after that, I said, okay, you know what, I got this stuff figured out, let me give this a shot. And so here we are, like 6 months later. It's been fun so far, man.
Nice, man. So let's actually go back to that,
Okay.
because that's something that a lot of people, they probably they really relate to you on.
Yeah.
You had mentioned, you wanted to do solar, the wife didn't. The holes in the roof and everything else. Like,
Yeah.
I guess, how did you convince your wife to want to go to solar? Because I know how it is to try to convince mine and things, right? So it's not easy. But
Yeah.
how did you make it make sense for her, since it seems like you were more in?
Well, I mean, she was in too, but it was a kind of like a combination of a couple things. So we actually went to a wedding of some friends of ours, and they had just gone solar through another company. I don't know who they got solar with, but they said that they had a good experience, and they killed their bill basically. And at the time, we were complaining because our bill was high, like mid 300s every month, just without question. And we were on budget billing. So, for anybody who doesn't know about budget billing, basically they make it seem like it's a good deal, but it's not actually a good deal because they average out your usage, and ultimately you end up paying more in the long run.
Yeah,
And
it's like a
so
magician's hat.
it is, yeah. It's like a bait and switch kind of deal. Yeah, it's shady, but a lot of people don't take the time to really like try to understand it. So, anyway, we were paying a lot, and I knew enough that I was like, okay, well, if we could do it and bring our monthly costs down, because that was the thing for us, is like, let's figure out how to bring the monthly bill down.
Mm-hmm.
And we know we're going to have this house for 25 years, and regardless, like, even if we sell it, right, which I don't think we're going to do, I think we're going to hold on to this property for a long time, right? But even if we decided to sell it, it's like, okay, well, we could sell it with the house, and so we just really took a deep dive on the numbers. Now, at the time, um, going solar was different, drastically different, because interest rates were lower, payments were obviously lower too. And so for us, it just made a lot of sense. We actually, our monthly bill now is like $162 a month for solar versus the 300 and something that we were paying before. So when you look at that, by 50% basically. Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So it, now that I sell solar, I understand that everybody's situation is going to be different, right? And you really have to evaluate the numbers. Fortunately, the guy who sold us, wasn't just out to get a huge commission. He wasn't like, oh yeah, this is what you need. This is what, like I could cover your roof in panels and you'll have 130% offset, but you're going to pay XYZ and it'll be the same or whatever. Like, and that's the thing is like, we knew dealing with him and we got competitive quotes too. We got other quotes and I let him know and he said, listen, just give them to me and we'll compare them apples to apples. And yeah, it worked out for us, and so that's what it was. But to convince her, we really just worked through the numbers. It's like, okay, well, we know we're going to have the house, we're not going to get rid of it, we're going to save in the here and now, add value to the home, do the right thing for the environment, stuff like that. So for us, it made sense, right?
So when she saw the savings, she forgot all about the holes. She was more worried
Well,
about the holes in the pockets.
yeah, well, no, the holes never left the equation, even during the install.
Yeah.
She's like, because I work from home, right? And so she's like, install day, we get the email, we know they're going to be there. So, the next morning, 8:30 in the morning, the guys are here. The first thing she says is, hey, remind them they're not putting any holes in my roof. I was like, no, I got it. And so they put holes in the wall, to get the wires through to the panel, but that was it. No. And now, obviously you can't do that with just any metal roof. It's got to be certain kind of metal roof. Fortunately, we had to have a good majority of our roof replaced, and we opted to spend a little bit more money to match the same type of roof that we had before. So had we not done that, we would have had holes in the roof, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it just all worked out, and she was on board, and now it's awesome because we spend less every month. We're doing the right thing for the world. Add value to the house. So it's just like a win all over the board. So, and the best part about it is, had we not gone solar through power, I would probably not be selling solar today. I'd probably be still doing, IT and stuff like that. So,
yeah. Well, we'll touch on that. One thing I want to touch on first, though, is something that you said, and both of us being representatives for power and the fact that we do sell solar. You had mentioned about how the guy that you spoke with, you felt like he wasn't just out to get you, right?
yeah.
Like he was somebody that he compared the quotes, he gave you the opportunity to make an informed decision. We see so many times out there online and in reviews and stuff like that for solar where people are like, oh, solar's a scam. They're just out to get your money. They're going to ruin your roof and blah, 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 which we have to, take that in consideration. It is a real thing, right? And I always tell people it's not solar that's the issue. It's who you're doing business with, right?
It's absolutely true. Yep.
So touch on that a little bit. Like, what was it that? Because obviously, I mean, you sell now, but 6 months ago, you were on the other end. You were a consumer, right? So, what was it that was different about that guy that made you decide to do business with him versus the other quotes that you had gotten?
Well, I think there's like a level of interpersonal, like there's got to be a relationship there with the person first and foremost. And um you know it's interesting because the guy that we worked with at Power to get our system installed is not the guy that helped me get onboarded to start selling solar. So that's kind of like a different story, but he was actually referred to me through mutual friends. And so I think had it not been for the referral, and that's huge in the solar industry, right? Had it not been for the referral, I probably we could have worked with another guy. I mean, we had a guy sitting at the kitchen table, and he was very likable, very personable. We got a good feeling about the guy who was here, and had it not been for that referral, I don't know if we would have worked with Power, and the guy who came by, he's, like, I'm super high energy.
What do you say that?
What do you mean?
When you say had it not been for the referral?
I
What do
think
you think was?
we had made our mind up kind of like, okay, we're going to do it. We had a couple other quotes and it was like, okay, well, this is the best one. We get the bet, this is kind of the best out of the ones that we had. And then it just so happened that somebody was like, hey, I saw that you were looking into going solar. I got a guy.
Yeah,
And so we kind of snuck that in there at the end, and we by this point it was kind of one of those things where we knew that we could do it no penetration. We knew that it was going to cut our bill almost in half. Like we knew all the stuff, but it was like okay, well, let's talk to this guy only because he was referred to me by somebody else. And then it was, hey, just so you know, I'm looking at some other options. And this is very common, in the solar industry is, and I encourage it with homeowners, is like, listen, please go get 2, 3, 4 more quotes, go get more proposals, but then bring them back to me and let me show you apples to apples. Because whatever it is, I'll match it for sure. And if I can't match it for one reason or another, I'll let you know, hey, this is a better deal. But, that, I mean, it doesn't happen all that often. Okay. But,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah. And, so fortunately, like I said, we got the referral. The guy came by, talked to us. Everything's great, and now I still have a relationship with him. We work together. He's in power. We work together on things. We collaborate. We bounce ideas, and that's awesome. But yeah, so
Nice. And then another thing that you had touched on, and I said we'd go back to it, is the fact that you said if you didn't do business with power, you probably wouldn't be selling solar right now.
mm,
What was that transition for you where you realized, you know, you went from being an IT guy to, purchasing solar to now you actually wanted to sell it? Like, where did that transition
yeah. So that transition is still happening, right?
happen?
I'm learning every day, and a matter of fact, I work a full-time IT job while I sell solar. So that's the beautiful thing about this is, I know a lot of people who get into solar and they want to commit, right, full time, but it's like that leap of faith thing where it's like golden handcuffs. A lot of people call it golden handcuffs. You got this comfortable desk job, you make good money, you don't necessarily need to do XYZ.
Hmm.
But for me, what it was number one, the experience that we had, right? And the fact that, you know, and this was at the time, and this is still true, but the thing is with financing changing the way it is, it's not the same necessarily. But,
What do
it
you mean
was,
by that?
well, I'll get to that. So,
Okay.
at the time, 6 months ago, and you and I both know 6 months ago, financing in the solar industry was drastically different. I mean, when we got solar, we had a 0.49% APR, so that really, and then, fees with the finance partners and stuff like that. So to go solar then, it was it was very common to just cut electric bills in half. I mean, in California, you were like 60, 70%, right? Florida, 40, 50% was very common. And
Hmm.
now with the way financing has changed, it's not so much about saving, 20 or 40 bucks on your monthly bill. It's more about, okay, well, you see the cost of everything going up, electric, gas, utility, water, groceries at the store. I mean,
Oh
eggs,
yeah.
right? Everything is going up and it's going to continue to rise.
Oh yeah. It's no different than
And
the real estate industry. I've had my real estate license since 2016. I've been doing real estate, and back when interest rates were down in the 2%,
mhm,
why do you think the market rose the way it did? Because
yeah,
now all these people that couldn't afford to buy homes are now able to afford to purchase homes. Now, it's not
correct.
necessarily the same with solar in the sense that, solar, you're saving money either way,
Mhm.
as long as your house qualifies. But, the amount of money that you could save was, tremendous back then compared to, even though it's still really big,
Mhm.
it's not comparable,
Yeah, yeah.
compared to
I
now.
mean, the reason I decided to get involved, because at the time when we got solar, it wasn't the right time for me. I had stuff going on with my kids, and just we were working on the house. There was a lot going on at the time. It just didn't make sense. I couldn't devote the time and energy I needed to learn a new industry.
Yeah.
Um, but the reason I got into it when I did was because all those things kind of, you know, worked themselves out. And we had such a good experience working with power, and we were able to like really change the financial game when it came to our electric, you know, bill. And I knew, okay, I can go help other people do what I did, and if I have any part in it, I'm going to make sure they have the same experience that I have, right? So for me, it's like, okay, there's a lot of shady stuff going on in the solar industry. Like I said at the beginning, like people just out there trying to put as much solar on your roof just to get the biggest commission check that they can get, right? Instead of actually taking like a consultative approach and saying, okay, well, listen, you know, what about your hot water heater? What about your AC? Like, you know, you need to address these things too, because if you don't, you're going to end up overspending on a solar when you could just go this route, you know, and we can help with some of that stuff too. So really like going above and beyond to help homeowners while also like bringing some positive energy to the solar industry, at least here where I live, right? Mm-hmm. If I could just make things a little better for the people that I serve. So that's why, you know, I got into it. And I had looked into getting into solar before, you know, a couple years ago. Solar started to pick up, you know, I started seeing systems go up, and I was like, oh man, I know that's going to be a booming industry, right?
Yeah.
But it was, you know, there's like a bro mentality kind of like in some companies. It's like, you know, we're gonna say what we have to say, and it's like just a bad culture in some places. Yeah. And so, you know, I couldn't find a good fit at the time where I was like, okay, again, like taking that leap of faith, going from something I'm comfortable doing. So doing so with power allows me the flexibility to do it on my own time, do it on my own terms, but also I don't have to report to somebody or some like, you know, culture that I don't really jive with. You know, and I can sell in 21 states, you know, so I think that's awesome. Although, you know, my focus here is Central Florida. So, yeah.
No, I like that you touched on that point, and that's one of the things I like about power is just the ability to expand how you feel fit, right? You're not just limited to helping people in one area; you can help people all over the country.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things, if somebody always asks me, actually, I want to ask you this first before I answer this. When somebody asks you why are you different from everybody else that comes to them, what would be your answer?
I'm going to treat the families I serve, the homeowners that I serve, I'm going to treat them the same way I would treat my own grandmother, period. So, you know, my grandmother, she's no longer with us here, but, you know, my girl's grandma, she is, right. And she was actually, you know, I put together a proposal for her house. She needs a roof. She doesn't want to, you know, pay out of pocket to get a roof. And I told her, I said, listen, you know, we can do this where I get you a roof, zero out of pocket. I cut your electric bill down, you know, at the time, this was, you know, probably January, I think. So it was still, there was savings there for sure, but it wasn't the same. But, you know, say, hey, listen, your family, let me do what I can to give you the absolute best deal in solar. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit more because you got to get a roof, but you'll pay nothing out of pocket. You get a brand new roof. And then, you know, her plan was, you know, when she's getting ready to leave the nest, she wants to go, you know, be a retiree in a condo somewhere on the beach. That's her plan, right? In order to make that happen, though, she's going to end up selling the house. And so I told her, I was like, listen, you sell the house, this gets added to the value of your house. You're going to improve the value of your house, not only with the solar, but with a brand new roof too. And, you know, so even though, you know, she's elderly, it made sense for her. She has tax liability. Like there's all these things that work into it where, you know, what separates me from somebody else is somebody else might just say, oh yeah, let's get you in a lease, or, oh yeah, let's just do what we have to do to get glass on your roof because I want to get that commission. And so, you know, that's what sets me apart is I'm going to treat everybody as if they were my own grandma. And if it doesn't work for you, I'm going to tell you straight up, you know, so.
Well, that's a good answer. And one of the things that I always tell people, and that's the reason I wanted to ask you first. One of the things I tell people is I'm not just trying to make a sale with them,
Mhm.
right? If I just go for a sale with somebody that's in front of me, that's the last time I'm going to talk to them.
Yeah.
And there's a saying, it's your network is your net worth. And
Yep.
it's about how you build relationships.
Hmm.
And for me, I take the same approach as you in the fact that, I want to make sure I'm treating them correctly. I want to make sure that I'm helping them the best that I can, because in reality, the more people that you help, there's reciprocity,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
If somebody does something nice for you, it makes you feel good about that person and it makes you want to do something for them.
Yep.
So when I do sales for anybody, what I do is I approach it in a way where it's like, okay, well, how can I help you out? What is the reason why you're looking into solar?
Yeah.
What are some of the benefits that you've noticed? What are some of your concerns? Just making sure that we're asking them questions to be able to find out how we can help them best. And I always tell people, if somebody just comes in the house and just spews a bunch of crap at you and they don't let you talk and they're not asking you questions, how does that make you feel?
Right.
You know, it's not going to make you feel good. You're not going to want to do business with them, right?
Hmm.
But if they sit down and they take the time to get to know you, they take the time to build a relationship with you, well, how confident are you going to feel with that person? You know,
Right. Yeah. I think the relationship piece definitely goes a long way. Um, I've heard other people say this. I don't say this. I may, put it out there every once in a while in the future, but it's almost like you're getting into a marriage, right? Because really, when you think about it, most people, they don't have 30, 40, 50,000, depending on the size of the system. They don't have a bunch of cash stashed away to just pay cash for solar, right?
mm-hmm.
And so because of that, they're going to be financing, you're going to be in a relationship with them for potentially 15, 20, 25 years.
Yeah,
And I think the ones who are really going to succeed and the ones that have succeeded before us in the solar industry are the ones who have a network of customers. And it doesn't have to be huge, right? But we call it, I come from a digital marketing background. I ran a marketing agency for about 5 years. And we call it your 100 raving fans, right? So if you have 100 people who will go out of their way to rave about you and to spread your message to the people that they know, you'll be set up for the rest of your career in that business. All it takes is 100 people, right? But you have to go out there and really show up for those 100 people and let them know, like, hey, listen, if you need anything, call me. You need anything, here's my cell phone number. Text me if you need anything. Like, you're not just calling some call center in India. If something goes wrong, I want you to call me and I will help you. I'll be your liaison. Like, Power is an amazing company, right? There's no doubt in my mind that they would be there for my customers too. Not a single doubt in my mind. But I'm still going to be there for them too. I want them to call me and say, hey, I got this question, I got this issue, whatever, because guess what? Then they can go and rave to their friends and family and say, yo, my solar guy is the bomb. He goes out of his way to answer my questions. He's always there when I need him. Like, if I'm worried about something XYZ, it doesn't matter. Just hit me up, let me know. And then that goes a really long way in the referral side. And
mm-hmm.
that's what keeps you going in solar is those referrals for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now, another thing, when it comes to solar, what would you say is reasons why people shouldn't do solar?
Um, well, there are definitely a couple. Number one, and I just had a conversation with somebody who she's got massive trees over her house, right? So that's the biggest one, is if your house is just completely covered in shade, there is a piece to that where it's like, sure, you could cut down the trees, okay, but do you really want to do that? Like, these trees do something for the planet. That's why there's like, deforest, that word
Deforestation.
deforestation. Yeah, deforestation. Thank you. I was trying to figure it out.
Oh, it's okay. It happens to me all the time.
Yeah, but there's all these efforts. Like we got to plant trees, we got to bring back the Amazon rainforest. Like and that's something that Power believes in strongly too. Is like, okay, take care of the Amazon rainforest. Like it's a big deal. So if your house is just totally covered in shade, it doesn't make sense for you to just clear out trees just to put solar on your house. Okay, so that's number one. I'm not going to tell you no, but I'm also not going to go out of my way to say, hey, listen, you're going to cut down, because you're going to end up spending a lot of money to cut down big trees, depending on the size. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, with the finance situation changing as rapidly as it is, I think leases and PPAs are going to become more of a topic of conversation. I personally don't like them. I feel like if you're going to be spending all this money, right, on this equipment, this power plant, this commodity producing asset that sits on your roof, if you're going to be spending all this money on that, you should own it, right?
Oh yeah.
But there is a small percentage of people where that makes sense for them, and that's going to be people with no tax liability. They can't take advantage of the tax credit. Maybe they're elderly. They don't have heirs or anything that they're going to pass the house down to. But I mean, literally, there are ways to get that to make sense for them even too. And so it would be that. It would be yeah.
Let's before you go to the next one,
Mhm.
let's talk about the leases and the PPAs, or for
Okay.
people that don't know the power
Sure.
purchase agreement. Um,
Yep.
so, I mean, when it comes to that, for me personally, I feel the same way. If they're not elderly and they're not at the end of their life, or if it's a situation where financially it just makes more sense or something like that, obviously there's reasons for it. But why are you against like the PPAs and the leases versus owning?
Well, so with a you're it comes down to the fact of you don't have the ownership, right? So you could argue, and I actually have a friend who she bought a house from somebody and they had solar on the house, but it was a lease. Okay. She had to jump through all these hoops just to get that figured out with the seller of the home. And so I don't have enough personal experience dealing with it to know from a firsthand. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I believe that if you're going to be spending all the money, you should own the equipment. That's just me, right? Now,
Oh yeah.
um, like I said, I mean, there's a small marketplace for it right now, but I think with the way financing is happening, I think there is going to be some room for that, and it'll grow a little bit more. But we'll have to see what happens. Right now, just considering my market, I'm in Central Florida, and Florida's booming. Right, the real estate market is still up here. Economy is great in Florida, right, and so um, I think for my target market, I'm going after homeowners who they could benefit from ownership, taking control of their power. They're always going to get a better rate, right? So the price per kilowatt hour is going to be less through ownership. And yeah, I mean, that would be my main reason. All just comes back to ownership. So it just for the ones who maybe a lease is more fitting. Okay, we have resources and power where they can say, okay, well, this is why, right? We go through, we check the knowledge base and all that stuff. But um
Mm-hmm.
there are some people who are selling a lot of leases out there.
Oh, yeah.
So it makes sense for some people. It always is going to come back to ownership for me. So
Yeah. No, the reason I touched on that is exactly what you just said. There's a lot of people that are pushing them, and here's why. Um, Leases and power purchase agreements, I don't agree with them personally, just for the simple fact that, like you just said, it's a rent versus own scenario, and renting something versus owning something never makes more sense
yeah.
unless there's a specific circumstance like we were talking about with these. where they're elderly, or just financially it's not going to make sense for them to own, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but the reason people are pushing these so hard, and there's so many people that are signing up on them, is because they are cheaper.
Yeah.
But it's not that they're cheaper long term. And this
Right.
is the trap that a lot of people get in, and why
Hmm.
people say, "Oh, solar is a scam," and blah blah blah. So this is why I wanted to touch on this,
Hmm.
right? You might have a solar ownership payment of $175 a month, or
Yeah.
you might have a lease or a PPA that might be $115 a month.
Right.
Well, as a salesperson, there's some salespeople that they don't have your best interest in mind,
Hmm.
and they're going to go for the sale. So when they see that you're objecting to $175 a month, they're not going to go over the benefits and show you, okay, well, this is why there's value in
Yep.
paying $175 a month. Because somebody that has your best interest in mind, they're going to present the value to you versus the cost.
Right.
Because as soon as you say, "Oh, I don't have $175 a month," okay, well, I have another option that's 115.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
so
So we have so many different financing options that, we can get really creative in how we work out the numbers, right?
yeah,
Um, I had a conversation with somebody on Facebook recently, and he was really pushing the lease thing, and he didn't want to go into too much detail about total overall cost.
mm,
And so, and this was on a public group. So, I called him out on it and said, listen, something's off with what you've given us. We don't have the whole story here.
yeah,
And so now that you say that, that's definitely what it is, is they push that lower monthly payment. But again, think about the same way, like if you lease a car, right? So I've never leased a car, but I know people who do. And there's
mm,
convenience there in the fact that, like, you have, I don't know, I think some leases include maintenance, and like you have just like a lower monthly than, maybe if you were to own it outright. But the problem is there's all these stipulations, like, oh, you're only allowed X number of miles per month, right? Or whatever. And I feel like there's something similar happening with the solar side with leases, maybe not consumption or, generation. It may not be that, but it's definitely like in the case with my friend, it came down to the point where she was going to walk away from the closing table because the homeowner didn't want to figure out the lease piece. Like, it was so much of a nightmare that it
mm,
almost killed the sale of this house, right? It almost just took that and said, nope, we're not doing this, right? And so I don't know who that lease was from. I think I know, but I'm not going to say any names because I don't,
yeah,
there's
of course,
enough room
yeah,
at the table, right? We all know there's plenty of companies out here, and there are some major lease players, so we know who they are, right? But yeah, and so long story short, I mean, it significantly complicated the process on selling when the lady was trying to sell the house. And so, those are the things that you have to consider. And when you have somebody who, like you said, is just looking to get the sale versus, okay, well, let's do some discovery. Like, that's my favorite part, right? Is actually sitting down and figuring out, like, okay, number one, what has you interested? Number two, what are your plans later on? Like, I helped a friend of mine. She finally decided after months, and she even told me, she's like, I should have just done it when you first told me to do it, because financing changed. I mean, she waited like 3 months, and in that span, it changed drastically, right?
oh yeah,
But I sat down and I talked to her. I said, listen, what are your plans? Oh, well, we're probably going to sell the house and move to Tennessee in 3 years, 3 to 5 years. I said, okay, well, then in that case, we need to go this route instead, because it doesn't, for one reason or another, this doesn't make sense. And so when you have somebody who, sure, maybe the monthly payments might be higher if we go this direction, but overall, this meets your 3 to 5 year plan better than if you were to go this route. And that's to full circle, that's what sets me apart from somebody else, right? So
That's what I was talking about earlier too, because it's like when you have somebody that's just a product pusher and they're showing you presentations and this is going to benefit you and blah blah blah.
yeah.
Well, how do they know what the benefits are going to be to you if they don't even know what's important to you in the first place? You know, just as an example, say that somebody has health conditions. I actually just made a video about this with the new federal tax credit.
Okay.
So with the new credit, they're giving 30% as a tax credit, but it
Yep.
also includes batteries.
Right. There is a part, I actually have it pulled up here
Oh
because
yeah.
we were
But
talking
the
about it
point
today.
is,
Yeah.
without getting into the details on it, if somebody wants to be able to purchase solar and say that they have a health condition, right, where they need life-saving devices in their home, or they
Yeah.
have medicine that they need refrigerated for asthma or for diabetes or something,
Yep.
we're in Florida. So
Mhm.
what happens if three hurricanes roll through and knock the power out for 2, 3 weeks at a time?
Correct.
Well, now you have those backup batteries to keep your life-saving devices on, and it's going to keep your medicine cool.
Yep.
But if you don't ask questions, how can you find out that that's something that somebody needs to integrate into their solar system to meet the demands that they have?
Absolutely.
Because that's a really big benefit that people won't be able to get if you don't ask about it. Because, I can guarantee you, we can do 50 consultations. And if we don't ask that question about somebody's health, they're not going to know to ask, oh, do you guys have batteries?
Yeah.
So it's our
Yeah.
job as professionals to be able to, go through that with these people and recommend the right service and the right product for them.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, discovery is the biggest part of it. You know, anybody can learn the technical side and figure out, okay, well, this panel is this big and this is what it does. It takes the sun, it turns it into energy, it produces this much energy, like all that. There's a saying, it's not magic, it's just math, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
all of that part of it is just math, but really figuring out the why behind it all, that's where it's at. That's where the real, like, okay, let's get down to business part of it. That's where it's at, man.
Oh, yeah.
So
I mean, at the end of the day, think about it like an airplane, right? When you get on an airplane, the pilot knows what he's doing. You buy your
mhm.
ticket, and if you want to go to Jamaica, you just sit in the seat. You go to Jamaica.
Yep.
You don't have to know how much fuel is in the gas tank. You don't have to know how fast you're going. You don't have to know what the engine is.
Yep.
You just trust the pilot to get you to where you want to go.
Right.
And it's the same thing. Anybody can go on YouTube and learn how solar works. But the most important thing isn't about how solar actually works. The most important thing is how is that solar going to work for them?
Yes, absolutely. That's perfect. Yeah.
So, mic drop.
Boom. That's it. Yeah, no, man, that's a good way to think about it. I mean, like I said, I feel like there's so like the this is a $1 trillion industry, right?
Oh, yeah.
$1 trillion industry. And a lot of people get into solar for the money, and the money's there. And it'll be there for at least the next 10 years, hopefully, right? As long as legislation doesn't change, the tax credit is going to be around. Okay. Um, and to talk about batteries, like we see what happened in California recently. um, what's funny is everybody's talking about California, but nobody's really talking about the fact that over in Hawaii it was already this way. For what's happening in California already happened in Hawaii a couple years ago, and solar exploded the same way in Hawaii that it's doing now in California. It comes down, and then they're like, okay, well, we can do this with batteries, and now solar is like this amazing value proposition again, right? So I think solar is definitely the move. It's here to stay. It only makes sense that we use this massive fireball in the sky to power all our homes. Like, we can't, digging holes in the ground and burning trash on fire is the old way of producing electricity, right? We're in like this massive technological boom where things are evolving at a rapid pace. Even batteries. I was having a conversation with somebody today. Battery technology is evolving in the here and now, right? And so, you know, you've got these people in California who, you know, they're gonna get, unfortunately, they're gonna miss this deadline for the new net metering policy. They're ultimately going to have to get batteries in order to save money long term on their electricity costs. They're going to have to. And so, because of that, there's going to be a surge in battery needs in California. With California being California, a lot of states are likely going to follow suit. Florida was, you know, I mean, net metering in Florida was on the chopping block, you know, and fortunately that got killed. But, you know, it's just, it's one of these things where like we have to act right here and now and try to do what we can while we can before people with a whole lot more money than all of us come in and say, hey, you know what, no, we're going to make it this way. You know, we have to do it. We have to do what we can, because what we've been doing for the last 130 150 years is just not going to work for the next 100 to 150 years. It's not sustainable. So
Yeah. Well, I like the point that you're making. The one thing about it though, solar is always going to make sense, right? And eventually, you know, with the way the government's going, even with how California is doing the NEM 3.0, and it's cutting the payouts by about 75%, which is why the real urgency in California right now is to get solar so they can be grandfathered in the next 20 years.
Yep.
However, just because they're doing that doesn't mean it, you know, it's completely cutting out the benefits of solar, right?
That's true.
Even if people don't add batteries, it's still going to be able to offset their electricity and be a benefit to them, right? There's a thing that I always like to tell people, and it's, you can either adapt to survive, or you know, you can sit back and, you know, die, right?
Yeah.
So the solar industry is so innovative, and there's so much that I love about it, which is what got me into it, that no matter what changes happen, there's always going to be something figured out to work around that, you know?
Right.
And the other thing is the government, there's never one stable plan for the government. Right? Like California,
Yeah.
they mandated that every home built after 2020 needs to have solar.
Yep.
It's a mandate. No home can go without solar that is built after 2020. So it's kind of funny that they're putting the NEM 3.0 in, because it's contradicting.
It is very much so.
They're mandating solar and saying, listen, you need to have it. Solar is important. But then at the same time, they're taking away the benefits of solar, not necessarily taking them away, but limiting them.
Yeah.
To where now it's not as beneficial to the consumer.
Right.
Right? And the electricity company's whole argument is, well, you know, it's going to hurt us because we're not going to be able to make as much money. We're going to lose efficiency and blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing. How much money does it cost to make dams, to make power plants?
Yep.
It costs hundreds of millions of
hundreds
dollars,
of millions of
billions
dollars.
of dollars to produce these. The good thing about solar is the power plant is on top of every single person's house. And the best part is it's directly putting that energy into the grid instead of the energy having to travel hundreds or thousands of miles through cables.
Yeah.
You know, so it's actually much more efficient for them to have people have solar on their homes. And it's cheaper.
It is cheaper. And I think it will always be cheaper.
Oh yeah.
So
but it's just it makes you laugh when you think about it. But yeah, I mean, the thing about solar is that there's it's never gonna be outplayed, you know, because it's too good of a resource for them to figure out a way to eliminate it, and that's why they're trying to limit it, because they're scared, but they know
they got to protect their bottom line.
Get rid of them.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have to adapt or die.
That's true. That's true. I just realized how dark it is on my camera, and it's because the sun is going down, and I don't have this light on. So hold on 1 second. Let me turn this on.
You're fine. There we go. All right.
Okay, that's better. Yeah.
I'm gonna turn my lights down a little. I'm super white here.
Yeah. No,
Maybe
I
get some
mean,
sun.
so I thought for sure maybe that'll help.
I need some solar
Usually
energy.
if I have like something with a white background here on my screen, it will light me up enough.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, man. So yeah, no, you know, the utility companies are America's last monopoly, right? And
Oh yeah.
um they know what's coming, and they're doing everything they can to stop it from happening. You know, it's it's like you said, like solar's definitely not going away. If anything, it will just continue to improve, continue to get better. Best time to plant a tree was yesterday, right? So like the same thing with solar. Best time was to do it yesterday. Actually, really, the best time was to do it like 5 years ago. But we don't have time machines, so we can't go back and figure that out. But yeah, man, it's I think there's a real benefit, at least. And so maybe I just have like my blinders on here in Central Florida. You know, like Duke is the well, you have Duke and you have Tico and FPL, right?
Yeah. Florida
But
Power and Light and Duke
Florida,
are
yep,
75% of the state. So
yeah, yeah, massive, right? So they're the main three, and then you've got like several different co-ops and stuff, which, you know, they're pretty much just little conglomerate branch offs of one of those, right? But here in Pinellas, you know, Duke, they've raised their rates. I want to say it's like 68% since January of 2020, or maybe it's December of 2019. But it's like in the last 2 years, it's gone up like 68%, right?
oh, yeah.
If
You
you
know,
look
they
at
just put in for a 20% increase.
it goes in, yeah, it goes into effect.
April.
It got approved. So a lot of people, you know, and this is something that I didn't know until I got into solar, was the utility companies actually have to get approval for that. So there's like an approval process that takes place. But guess who approves it? It's all the political figures, you know, and stuff where the lobbyists who support the company, the energy companies, they put the money into the pockets of the people who give them the yes. So it's like, no matter what, those energy companies, because they have all this money, they ultimately they end up winning, you know, and they get their ways. And so
See, so whether you're a Republican or Democrat, they're screwing us all.
yeah, I mean, and I don't get into politics at all, really, but like, you know, say what you will,
we're all the same when it comes down to the way that they treat us. We're all
well,
the same.
at the end of the day, we're supposed to be leaving the planet better than what we came here to, right? That's like the thing that a lot of people, you know, it's like that's the mission, really. You know, we're here, we have fun, everything's great, you do what you can. Everybody wants to be successful, but like real success is like, okay, let's leave this legacy behind. Let's keep the planet around for a while, you know, because like I have kids and I'll probably have grandkids, and you know, there'll be people who hopefully in a couple generations still talk about me and what I did, you know, for the world while I was here. So, you know,
like
so
those, when you watch the movies, that's your great grandpappy.
yeah, that's right. You know, I got pictures of me out on a boat, and they're gonna be like, "What is that thing?" You know, if we keep going at the rate we're going, I don't know. The oceans are, oh man. But you know, I'm not like a tree hugger, or you know, like some crazy, you know, gotta save the planet type person.
Yeah.
It's just, this is definitely, you know, with enough time in this industry, I think, you know, that'll definitely set us up for future success. Just considering like the data behind it all, and if you really look into it, you'll see like if we can cut back on some of these, you know, some of this dirty energy, you know, we can hopefully stop some of the things that are happening to the planet. And then, you know, but ultimately it'll probably be after my lifetime before anybody really sees the benefit from it. So at the end of the day, you just have to, you know, do that for the kids, and then hope that things are better in the next generation, you know. So
well, I mean, you're in the great company to do that. we're the only company in our industry that's 100% carbon neutral.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
100%
big
off.
deal. That's a big deal. I think that's awesome. Obviously, I think that's going to continue to be a thing for I think as long as power is around. I think that's a big part of why they do what they do. They're a lot. They're collaboration with like the Pachamama Alliance, and like if you go and look at Power, I don't know if you've actually seen this. Have you looked into Power's impact report?
I have not.
Yeah, so you should check that out. They're getting ready to publish their impact report for 2022. So it's a little bit behind, right? But not crazy. But yeah, they're getting ready to publish that. It's a big deal. If you look at the one from 2021, there's a list of all of the environmental projects that Power has worked on, to help leave the
Oh
world
yeah.
a better place. But that's a big part of it. It's like carbon neutral, like offsetting all of those carbon emissions. Um, and not I yeah, it's like you said, I think Power's the only company that's 100%. A lot of companies are trying to get there, but Power's definitely there already. So
Hmm. Oh yeah. And the big thing I like about power, and this shouldn't be we're not doing a recruiting session here, but one of the things about power is the fact that our business model and the way that it works with all our partnerships and everything,
mhm.
um, we're not your typical small solar company.
Yeah,
There's over 10,000 solar companies in the world, in the United States, and we're one of the top 10.
yeah,
But we're the only one that has the business model like we have at our scale. And the fact that we have so many contracts with different people, it allows us to help people better,
yeah,
because we have so many financing options, because we have so many options with equipment, because we work with local installers. It's something that allows us to not just sell solar and put solar on people's homes. However, it allows us to do it at scale, which
yeah,
is something that a lot of people aren't able to do. And this is why we did over $300 million last year. So,
yeah, yeah. It's a big deal, man. Yeah, I mean, just for rundown, because I don't know who's gonna see this, but for anyone who is seeing this, right? Uh 22,000 installs. Okay. I think we got somewhere just north of 8,000 independent sellers, right? So, not everybody's active, right? Like me, like, I am active, but a lot of people get into solar just part time, right? And so maybe they're not active all the time, but we have a nationwide footprint where we have licenses in 21 states and Puerto Rico. We're getting ready to add New York and Hawaii, so that's awesome.
mhm.
And then ultimately just the revenue, right? So 300, I think it was $323 million. But if you look at the growth of Power, it's more than doubled year over year since 2019. So um, it's obvious that the Power is doing the right thing. Think of them as like the Uber of solar, right? They're a solar company. We're a solar company, but we don't install any solar. And that's one of the things that when I'm talking to homeowners, that comes up. It's like, okay, well, how do we know that you're going to be around? And that's a very valid question, because a lot of solar companies, like, one of the homeowners that I just helped, was actually Christmas time, which blew my mind. Um, she got burned by another solar company. They sold her a system. She signed paperwork, everything, and then they closed their doors. They closed up shop, and they left a stack of equipment in her driveway. And she just had like a horrible experience with this other company. And I was like, listen, how do we know that you guys are going to be there? And how could we not be there, right? In like 25 years, solar is going to be everywhere. So why would we not, especially when we have, when power has the, just the relationships, like you said, and really tying all of the moving pieces together. um there's always going to be installation companies, there's always going to be somebody producing solar panels, there's always going to be banks, right? So if you just continue to be the liaison, continue to be the the person who ties everything together, there's no way to not be there for that homeowner. So um, we're definitely doing the right thing. The revenue model with power is amazing, right? Like you said, it's not really a recruiting call. This isn't a recruiting thing by any means, but you know some people they have their opinions, right, about power. um, I could go and I could build a team, right? If I want to, I can say, hey, you know what? You match my energy. You want to make a lot of money in the solar industry. You want to change people's lives. You want to do something awesome for the environment. Like, you want to get in on this $1 trillion industry and do something fun and like be a part of this awesome culture. Well,
Mm-hmm.
come on over here. I'll teach you everything you need to know. And then that way I know, like, hey, you're going to sell ethically, you're going to do the right thing for people. I could bring you in, and it's beneficial to me, but it's also beneficial to you. But guess what? I don't have to do that. I can just go and sell solar.
Mm-hmm.
And I think yeah, I think power is going to be a huge disruption in the solar industry. We got SolarCon coming up in April. Jonathan
I
Budd,
have to
see,
correct you. It already is.
what's that?
Power is a huge disruption in the industry
Oh,
already.
yeah. You caught me off guard there. Yeah, no, we are for sure. There's no doubt about that. But I would say just wait until you see some of the stuff that's getting ready to happen with power, because
Oh yeah.
um yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to make the right connections in power, and talk to people, and for being the guy who's part-time and working on closing deals. I mean, I've got my thing that I'm doing, right? um this is the path, right? It's just a matter of getting through the weeds, and getting through some of this other stuff first for me, without divulging too much here. But yeah, I mean, Jonathan Budd's going to be like one of the main speakers at SolarCon. And the funny thing is like, this came up in conversation today, I think during the Florida market development meeting, where I was talking to somebody, and they said, listen, why do you think he's just now, like, SolarCon has been a thing. It's been a big event in the past,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Jonathan Budd knows what he's doing. He's a smart guy. I actually knew about Jonathan Budd way back when I was doing digital marketing. He was a digital marketer. And so it's just crazy how it all comes back around, right? But he's going to speak in front of all of the main players in the solar industry. Everybody who's in solar is at that event, right? And
Okay.
he's a smart guy. He's got, he could have gone last year, he could have gone the year before. But if you think about it, and really, like, the picture that comes to mind is the growth that I've seen in the slides, the revenue growth, the number of installs, the amount of solar that we've installed, the number of partners, the installation partners that we have, the enterprise piece, which is a totally different animal within power, right?
Oh yeah.
When you look at the graph of that stuff and how it just goes like this, JB is in a spot now where he's gonna really shake things up for a lot of people who, they look at power a little bit differently than how we look at power. And I think after SolarCon, and after a little bit of time where this stuff marinates, I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, wait a second, hold on, we either need to be involved with power, or we need to try to do what power's doing, and that ship has already sailed. So
Yeah, I agree with you, man. And the way I always describe it is for any realtors out there, this is the EXP of solar. You
yeah,
know, EXP Realty, if you're not familiar with them, they are a cloud-based online brokerage. And everybody said it wouldn't work, you know, and now the top people from Keller Williams, Engel and Volkers, Remax, all the big teams are moving over to EXP. And here's one of the things that works so well about that model that's working for power. The reason why we're able to give top of the line equipment and be able to beat out every single person's quote is because of the fact we don't have the overhead that all these other companies do.
yeah,
When you have to pay all these different employees and the trucks and all the equipment and everything else, well, at the end of the day, when you have that much overhead, you have a ton of bills. Good thing about power is we don't have that. So we're able to pass those savings on to our customers, and we're able to, you know, put more money in the pockets of our representatives.
yeah,
And that's one of the beautiful things that I love about the cost of goods model versus the red line model too. Because the red line model, they're focused on getting the most money for the companies.
hmm,
Power's business model, they're focused on getting the profits to the employees in a way where it's going to benefit the client.
yeah,
So as an example, like you can adjust that to make sure that you can, you know, get the client the best deal possible. And that's why we can price match. You
right,
know, because at the end of the day, we have that margin in the company where we can say, okay, well, let's see if there's something we can do for you and match the quotes of the other companies,
hmm,
you know, and not just match them, but beat them. And
yeah,
I think that's a powerful tool to be able to have when it comes down to being able to help people, because sometimes the money is the help. So when
yeah,
you go in and try to get that approval to be able to help them out, it's something that you know, I think is really powerful. So, but we're running a little bit over here. What I want you to do, man, if you want to just give some people your last words, and you know, if you want to introduce yourself again, just for the people that jumped in and they don't know who you are.
yeah. So my social game used to be on point, right? Now it's, you can just find me on Facebook. It's Corey Creech. It's like Screech from Saved by the Bell minus the S, or some people call me Cheech. But that's no. But
Not gonna ask. You're good.
yeah, man, and yeah, my business is proximity solar consulting. So I'm obviously I sell through power, but I am my own entity, right? So that's pretty cool, right? Trying to make things super official. But at the same time, like that relationship with power, is what propels this. Here in Pinellas in Florida, and obviously I've got little touch zones throughout the U.S., but for me, like the only team I'm building within power is here in Central Florida. So anybody who's seeing this, who's interested in developing and really like taking their personal development to the next level while also having a lot of fun in the solar industry, making good money, because there's plenty of money out there, and you shouldn't really do it for the money first, but the money's a big deal. So if you want to make a lot of money and you want to have fun and you want to really like help a lot of people here in Central Florida, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd love to see if you're a good fit, because like I said, I want to make sure that the people I bring on are going to be doing things right. So yeah, get in touch, and yeah, it's a pleasure, man. I love just chatting solar, man. This is a big deal for sure. So
Oh yeah, it's definitely a good conversation too. So, but yeah, guys, you heard it. If you're in Pinellas County, you know, reach out, and you know, he's trying to build a team. So if you want to impact people's lives and make good money in the process, then you know where to go. You know, if you guys got value out of this video, make sure that you like, comment, subscribe. Make sure that you share it. Make sure that you add yourself to the Facebook group. I'm going to put the link below, the Solar Spotlight. And until the next one, take care.
awesome. See ya.